We actually just built this character yesterday and went through acts 1 through 3 in 8 hours flat. Now, it's probably even faster than that. I wasted a lot of time, but basically I didn't stop the entire time. We just ran straight through the game. And as you can see from the footage here, with Stun Grenade, we can basically just explode packs instantly. And then when we get to a boss, we just lay the other grenades down and the boss just, its health gets chunked. So let's go into the skill tree. Let's explain why this build is so interesting and talk a little bit more about it. Let's go into the game. All right, here we are. We're looking at my warrior. Now, first of all, that might surprise you. This is not a mercenary grenade classic build. Like, if you've seen some other build guides, I noticed the moment I stopped streaming yesterday, there were some other build guides talking about grenades. You're going to be a little bit more down here in the tree doing sort of like a pure grenades build. That's not really what we're doing here. So what we're really focused on is a couple of the mechanics where we are stunning enemies. And stunning enemies is going to keep us safe, and it's going to kill them really, really fast. So let's look at a couple of the key nodes, and then we'll get into sort of how to grow your character from Act 1 to Act 2 to Act 3. And then I haven't even gotten to the end game with this build yet, but I have no doubt that this build is just going to absolutely slap the end game. And we can talk about some of the options at end game as well. So first, let's talk about heavy stun. So Shattering Blow is very, very interesting. Break 50% of armor on heavy stunning an enemy. And what this node should really read like is it should say, instantly break all the armor of an enemy when you heavy stun them. Because there's a whole bunch of other nodes and physical damage that you're doing and a whole bunch of other things that basically end up contributing to that armor break. And so you don't really have to worry about breaking additional armor, but we'll also talk about breaking additional armor maybe for the end game. We're also picking up a ton of damage, 18%, 18%, 18%, 18%, 40%. 18, 18, 18, 18, 40. It just goes on and on. We're doubling our grenade cooldown uses. We have additional projectiles. And there's a lot more down here that we can grab as well as up here. Now let's talk about how you can start this build, because this is a crazy build. So first of all, we're picking warrior, which is really weird. Most people are picking mercenary for this. And we're going to start over here on this armor node. And the first act, the way this plays through the first act when we played it yesterday and we just deleted the game, the first act is actually the hardest, but we have a lot of health life regeneration, right? So this is 0.2%, 0.2%, 0.5% of life regen. We pick that up right away. So we don't have a ton of damage. We still have enough damage with the grenades and some of our initial abilities, and we'll get to the gems here in a second. But we have a lot of sustain, right? So some of the boss fights can take a little bit longer than they're going to take later. So the build actually kind of comes online, I want to say sort of like the middle of Act 2. So just be aware of that there's a little bit of ramp in order to get to this side of the tree. So we're going to path this way. We're going to path this way. And then we're going to pick up this node. Battle Hardened is very good. We get 20% armor evasion and 20% reduced critical damage bonus, which is great for keeping us alive. And then we're going to pick up more regeneration. In fact, this 0.75 regeneration node is actually kind of wildly insane. Okay. Then finally, we're going to make our way all the way down here, and we're going to go pick up this grenade side of the tree, this end. We actually don't need this cooldown until much later. In fact, I still don't need it. We're in Act 1 Cruel right now with this character. I will end up picking this up because this is actually, these nodes are kind of cracked. But we pick that up later. So once you have cluster bombs online, the build is really just going to start slapping. And then you're going to go to Grenadier. And then after you go to Grenadier, then you're just going to start adding damage. You're going to go, these are 12% nodes when you first pick them up in sort of like end of Act 1, beginning of Act 2. So you're going to go 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, 40. And as the build really starts coming online. Yesterday I started feeling the build really coming online when we started picking up these nodes. That's when the damage started ramping, and we started instant killing all of the packs. It was ridiculous. So once we get this online, then you're probably ready to do your first trial of Secamus. So let's talk about the Ascendancy real quick. So this is the Titan Ascendancy. And the first Ascendancy, we're going to go here to Colossal Capacity. And the second Ascendancy, the Ultimatum Chaos Ascendancy, we're going to grab Hulking Form. The first one actually does almost nothing for us. It gives us a little bit of strength, and it gives us some inventory slots, which are here. Which, by the way, you have to open this. You might not know that this exists. So you have to click this little button. You might have some items in here if you didn't know that. So we grab this in Act 2, and then in Act 3, we're going to end up getting Hulking Form. When you pick up Hulking Form, what this does, this increases the effect of all your small passive skills by 50%. So in other words, over here, this life regen turns from a 0.2% to a 0.3%. But it doesn't affect these kinds of nodes, these big nodes, and it doesn't affect the keystones as well, like Unwavering Stance over here. It doesn't affect those. And then another thing to know about this is that it rounds down. So for example, way up here, you have these maximum resistance nodes. These are plus 1%, and then after you get on your character stats just by holding shift. It's really, really useful. Okay, so let's talk about when the build really comes online. So after Act 2, or after sort of the middle of Act 2, we're going to finish up this side of the tree, and then we're going to start coming over this way. Now, I decided to path through this attack area because this increases the damage radius, or the area of effect, I should say, for all of the grenades. And you need to path over here anyway. So, you could path this way and get 5 attributes, or you could pass this way, spend 3 extra points, because you got to path this node, and pick up these area effects for attacks. I might later on, once we hit Endgame, I might respec this little travel area further down here, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So for now, this is just to get us to the left side of the tree as quickly as possible. We're going over here, we're picking up a whole bunch of extra armor, 20, 22, 22, 22, 25, and then stun threshold, which is really great, so we don't get stunned, 22. And then we go down in here, which is actually just a repeat. So you see this node over here, this and this are almost exactly the same, except this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 small nodes, and this has 1, 2, 3, 4 small nodes. And we can actually pick up this one. I'll probably end up picking up this extra one. So this has 5 as well. You just gotta pick up this one. Don't pick up this one. It has melee weapons. That's not gonna help us out. This one is another 40% with stun buildup. So as you can see here, these 2 keynotes here are really important because they give us 20% increased stun buildup. And then we're gonna blitz up here to Shattering Blow. So then we get 22, 22, 22, and 50% of armor break. So as you can see here, the main concept is we're going to heavy stun enemies with the flash grenade. So let's talk about the gems really quick. First, let's look at flash grenade. This is sort of the main center thesis of the build. Now, flash grenade does 400% more stun buildup, which means every time we flash grenade and we hit an enemy with a flash grenade, we're basically just going to stun them instantaneously. And we're even sort of chain stunning bosses. And I feel like that as we get more and more stun buildup, we're going to chain stun them even more. It's actually kind of nutty. What we care about is what happens when we heavy stun. So when we heavy stun, we can get we can break armor, basically, right? There's actually a support gem that I'm not using right now because you can optimize this out. It's called Devastate. I believe it's called Devastate. Supported skills fully break armor when inflicting heavy stun. And you may want to use this when you're first starting the build out, so like right when you get to Act 3 for the first time. But you can very quickly spec out of this, and you can get over here to Shattering Blow. And once you get to Shattering Blow, you actually don't need that support gem anymore. And what you can do with Flash Grenade is you heavy stun the enemy, you instantly break their armor, you blind them, you trigger this armor explosion, which does 100%, if you look at this tab over here, 100% attack damage as fire. And every single enemy that gets armor broken does that 100% in a 1.4 meter burst around them. So if you have a bunch of enemies clumped up, kind of works like Corpse Explosion almost. When you have a bunch of enemies clumped up, they all damage each other for 100% armor damage, which is kind of crazy. Break Posture will also daze all of them. And then I just have Life Thief on here for sustain. We can actually replace this Life Thief with something else later on. A little extra life to keep us alive is nice. So yeah, that's actually mostly the build. Is just spamming Flash Grenade, running through a pack, hitting Flash Grenade. So what happens when we run into a yellow mob? Well, when we run into a yellow mob, then we also use a couple of other abilities. So we're using Gas Grenade. Gas Grenade is awesome because it actually combos directly with Flash Grenade. So Flash Grenade Armor Explosion is doing fire damage. So when that fire damage explodes, it actually triggers the Poison Cloud Explosion from Gas Grenade, which does 317% attack damage. So a lot of times what happens is we instantly kill a whole bunch of mobs with Flash Grenade. We just keep running through them. We don't even stop. We just keep running through, and then we get to a yellow mob. The yellow mob doesn't quite die in one hit. So what we need to do is we start lobbing Flash Grenades or Gas Grenades on top of them, and then we gas, the Gas Grenade explodes, and then the yellow mob dies. So we're more or less instantly killing the yellow mobs as well. I also have Bursting Plague on here to add a little bit of extra poison damage, to break armor with corrosion, and I'm using Scatter Shot for extra gas grenades. I'm actually going to change these up because I don't think breaking the armor from Bursting Plague is super valuable, or it gets less valuable over time. When you first get Gas Grenade at, like, I think it's gem level 5, it's very valuable to actually break armor with Bursting Plague, or excuse me, with corrosion. And Gas Grenade's corrosion ability sort of falls off over time. Like, I don't want to break the armor with this maybe at endgame. I want to do something sort of different with these. Now, if we need some real damage, if you look over here and you look sort of at the DPS, you'll see this has a lot more DPS than this. Why aren't we talking more about Explosive Grenade? Well, Explosive Grenade does a ton of damage, but its fuse duration is insanely long. It's 2.5 seconds. So you can see the fuse duration here is 0.85, and over here it's 2.5. So we can kind of just run into a pack, Flash Grenade. They all get dazed. They all get heavy stunned. They all get blinded, which, by the way, that keeps us alive. And they all instantly die. So if they don't die, then they'll be, they won't be able to hurt us, basically. Explosive Grenade is for bosses. And the thing about bosses is they don't move around very much. Most of the bosses, there's a couple bosses that, like Balaba in Act 2, that move around a ton, and they're kind of annoying. But essentially what we can do is we could just spam all of our grenades. So you can see down here, I have Flash Grenade on, I have Gas Grenade on, I have Explosive Grenade. So when I get on a boss, I just spam all of the grenades all of the time. And I just lay down as many Explosive Grenades as possible. It explodes the Gas Grenades. The Flash Grenades stun the boss. And the bosses just get chunked to death. In fact, our main problem right now is running out of mana. So I would prioritize like having a good mana flask. But aside from that, we're just kind of blowing up all of the enemies. As for your Spirit Gem, if you want to do a little bit more damage when you explode enemies, you can grab Herald of Ash. I really haven't spent a ton of time on this. In fact, I think the Vitality here is more important to regenerate 1% life. when you get to Act 3 and you get the 60 spirit, rather than this. Like, this is doing some extra damage, which I guess can help clean up mobs a little bit, but it's not super duper important. Okay, so that's kind of the basics. I do have Voltaic Grenade, but I literally haven't hit my Voltaic Grenade button. I don't even think... Oh, I did map it. But I haven't even hit this button in, well, forever. I assigned it to my bar and didn't use it. Oh, I still have my level 4 high velocity rounds from when I was level 4 right at the beginning. You do need to use high velocity rounds right at the beginning as you're starting to level, because you don't unlock Flash Grenade for a few levels, but you get it relatively quickly. And Explosive Grenade right at the beginning is a little bit too slow. Let me talk about Explosive Grenade just a little bit more. I have Fire Infusion on it, I have Fast Forward on it just to make it a little bit faster, and I have Magnified Effect. I do think I'm going to swap these out, but right now this is kind of what makes sense for me. It just does a little bit more damage, it's a little bit easier to use, and they have higher area of effect. Let me talk about my gear, because I don't think my gear is anything special. So I just want to show you kind of what I'm rocking right now for those of you who are kind of new to Path of Exile. So first of all is my bow, my crossbow. The main thing here is it has a lot of physical damage, and it has grenade skills, fire, and additional projectile. That's very, very good. Aside from that, this is actually a pretty good rolled crossbow, although it's item level 34, and I believe I'm character level 48. So I'm a little bit behind where my crossbow could be, but this is still rolled pretty well, relatively speaking. Especially because I have these two physical damage rolls. By the way, if you're new to Path of Exile, if you hold Alt over an item, you can see the tiers of every affix that are on your items. The higher the tier, the better. So if you see this, like top one is T5, that's actually quite good. Then you see T3, 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 T3. That's actually relatively good. T1 is really bad. So the higher the tier, the better. So let's see, I think I just got some boots with like, yeah, T6 life on these boots, right? Like these boots are, I just got these. These are actually crazy. The helm, I actually got this from our Chaos Trial in Act 3. It's got good. I just picked this up because it has lightning resist and max life. This ruby ring has a bunch of fire resist, and it has physical leech, which I really, really like. This has some max life, it has cold, and it has some chaos resist. I actually am looking to replace this. It's not the best. Our amulet, I just replaced the amulet here. This has max life, it's got LE all. And then we've got lightning resist. Actually, I should slam this, but it's only item level 25, so I feel bad for slamming this. Another thing is if you hold Alt over an item, you'll also see the item level. And so when you're thinking about crafting items, so like for example, if I wanted to improve this item, I could go to my currency tab here, and I could grab an exalted orb, and I could slam this. And I can add an affix to this with an exalt, right? But I kind of don't want to do that because this is item level 25, which means the affixes that are going to roll on this are only item up to item level 25's affix list, which is less than item levels that are much higher, like this is 38, this is 42, and so on. So I'm actually looking to replace this ring with one that not only rolls better, as you can see, this is T2, T2, T1, right? These are crappy affix rolls, but has a better item level so that when I craft on it, it has better chances. Anyway, we have a belt with some resists. We have a flasks. Our flasks setup, I really like charges per second, because what that means is that if the fights go really long, or if I just want to walk through the map and blow everything up, that I'm kind of getting constant charges and I don't have to really worry too much about where my flask charges are coming from. So yeah, oh, and then my gloves over here has a whole bunch of resists and max life. This has T7 max life. So you can see kind of what I'm valuing right now is physical damage, max life, and resists. Those are kind of the main things that I really care about right now. Some mana regeneration is actually very, very valuable for this build because I am spending so much mana on the grenades. Okay, that's basically it. That's basically the build. Now let's talk about some theory crafting about where I'm going to experiment next with this build and what you might see in another build update for sort of getting through the rest of the campaign and for endgame. So what I'm working on right now are these nodes down here. These are the armor break nodes. Now, these break additional armor, which if you look here, if you look here, this will break 50% of armor on heavy stunning an enemy, right? So my theory is that this here might break more armor when this breaks 50% of armor. I don't know exactly how that interaction works. I'm going to have to test that out. But regardless of how that interaction works, what I'm really interested in is this node here, 60% increased damage with enemies with fully broken armor. Because we're going to be breaking the armor of enemies basically 100% of the time, this just reads, do 60% more damage always. Then there's 30% more damage for fully broken armor and another 30% more damage for fully broken armor. And then there's also 100% armor break duration. So essentially, these three nodes right here is 120% more damage. Just for reference, these nodes here, which I was talking about earlier, which are so valuable, this is 18, 36, 36 times 2, which is 72, plus another 18, which is 90, plus another 40, which is 130, right? That's 130. This is 120, right? So this is super mega valuable, almost as valuable as this, except this has stun buildup, which is a little bit better. Okay, so that's where I'm going for damage next. What about sustainability? What about survivability? How are we grabbing that? Well, up here, we're very, very close to these maximum resistance nodes. Look, max lightning resist, max cold resist, max fire resist. We can take all of these and then we get max +1 all. So in all here, there's actually +3 maximum resist all, which is very, very, very valuable. If we get to endgame and we start having tons and tons of mana issues, blood magic is also right here. So we might just go boop, 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 and grab blood magic. And then we can convert all skill mana costs to life costs. And we have so much life sustain on this build that actually that won't matter. And in fact, it might be beneficial for us. And I'm going to talk about that now. So sustaining our life is going to get more important as we get towards endgame. And what we may be able to do is come down here to life leech and slower leech nodes. 22% increased amount of life leech, which is extremely valuable, right? And then over here, 35%, right? So overall, this is just this little node here is a massive amount of increased life leech. And then way over here on the tree, we can grab Vol Pact. Life leech is instant, right? So essentially, by grabbing Vol Pact, we negate the fact that the life leech is slower by just taking more life leech, right? And there's also other life leech nodes. There's some over here. These aren't quite as good as 22%. These are 15, but we can pick up some of these small ones if we really want to, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of options for sustainability in the build, for life regen, for leech, for dealing with mana problems. There's also some mitigation nodes that we've yet to pick up that I definitely plan on picking up. There's iron reflexes down here, convert all of our evasion rating to armor. Essentially, when we get into sort of optimizing our items at endgame, we're gonna look for items that look like this, that are armor evasion rating. And the reason for that is that armor evasion rating items roll a total amount of armor and evasion rating more than the items that are just armor. And so when we grab iron reflexes, then our armor evasion rating items become just better armor items, which is really, really, really valuable. And anything that we get that boosts evasion rating instantly will boost armor as well. So if we go up here and we look at this node that we talked about when we level up, getting 20% armor and evasion rating. Well, actually, that's just 40% armor now, more or less, right? And that's a lot more valuable than 15% armor. So some of these nodes, especially like here, 20% armor, evasion rating, and stun threshold, 12% or 18% armor evasion rating. Some of these nodes, if we need more mitigation, become extremely valuable. Let's talk about a little bit more damage. So of course, like I said earlier on, we want to get more cooldown recovery rate. I actually don't need this right now because I'm already just burning through my mana and I already have plenty of cooldown for all 3 of my grenades that I'm using. I might decide to use more grenades later. I might increase my attack speed. And when I do that, then more cooldown recovery rate is going to be more valuable. Another offensive node that I'm very interested in picking up is repeating explosives down here. This grenades have a 15% chance to activate a second time. The way that you should read this node is basically you have a 15% chance of doubling your damage, more or less, right? So your grenades are just going to always go off constantly, and that's pretty crazy. So we might go over here to this node. That's something else to Theorycraft. Over here, we have some more life leech. I don't know if we're going to make our way to this side of things, but we have a ton more life leech over here. Especially goring is very interesting. 30% life leech and 40 physical damage is a pretty valuable node. We also have some other mechanics that we can play with down here. We have maximum resists down here. So this is another basically maximum +1 all and then maximum 2 fire res. And then there are some super endgame level 3 support gems that I want to play around with that I haven't even gotten to. Namely, what really interests me, especially for defenses, is endurance charges. So there's a lot. Endurance charges by themselves in this game don't do anything. The charges do not grant any inherent benefits, but you can spend them to gain defensive power, essentially. And there's a lot of ways that we can get endurance charges. So like, for example, we gain an endurance charge when you heavy stun a rare unique enemy. And since we're heavy stunning rare and unique enemies all the time, basically, that's super duper valuable. So we might pick up this node and we might pick up some endurance charges in sort of like super late game. And what's great about these endurance charge nodes is they're all super close to where we're at. Where's the other one? Oh, it's up here. Yeah. So we're already super close to all of these. Recover 3% life for every single endurance charge consumed, right? So like this is 12% life for every endurance charge consumed. So yeah, that might go really well with blood magic over here, right? We might have ways to do that. Oh, I didn't talk about this node. So again, if we grab blood magic, we have this option: flip the script, recover 20% of life when we heavy stun a rare or unique enemy. I'm not taking this right now because my sustain is already super good going through the campaign with just the regen that we picked up at like level 1 to 4. But if I do need it, it's right here. It's super easy to pick up. Okay, last thing I want to talk about before we actually get back into the game and we blast through the rest of the campaign, because we're just deleting the campaign right now, is what we're going to do with our 3rd and 4th Ascendancy. So if you don't know, when you ascend in Act 2 and Act 3, you get 2 points. And then when you go through the campaign the second time, you get 4 more points. So in total, you get 8 points. And what we're going to do with these other points is we're going to go here for Crushing Impacts and Surprising Strength. So let's talk about what that does. So first of all, we're going to get more stun buildup for our flash grenades. And then our stun buildup is actually going to change to Crushing Blows. So Crushing Blows cause a heavy stun on enemies that are primed for stun. So essentially what Crushing Blows does is it changes the range of heavy stunning an enemy from 100% to a smaller percentage depending on the enemy type. I believe for normal enemies, it's 60%. So normally to heavy stun an enemy, you have to do 100% of that bar that's kind of under the enemy. I don't know if you've seen the heavy stun bar before under an enemy. Normally you have to fill that bar 100%, but this Crushing Blow basically will say, oh, is it 60% full? Cool, heavy stun them anyway. And it goes up. I believe it's 70 for rare and 80 for unique. I might have that. I might have that wrong because I can't actually see the. Here we go. Wait, I can see it. Here we go. 40% for normal, 60% for magic, 70% for rare, 80% for unique. Okay, so yeah, basically on bosses, when they're at 80% of their stun bar, they'll get stunned anyway. Anytime you hit them with a hit, which is insane. It's actually crazy. So then we're gonna get more stun buildup after that. And then we're going to get 40% more damage against heavy stunned enemies. Now, this actually isn't crazy valuable, so I might end up going Stone Skin, or I might end up going Mysterious Lineage. I don't think Aftershocks is going to be particularly valuable, but this life regeneration, 0.5 life regen, is pretty nice, and 15% more maximum life means more life regeneration. Last thing I want to talk about and teach you about before we go and maybe do a build-up update for Endgame for this build later on is percentage gain maximum life. So one of the reasons this build does so well, even just like out of the gate, is because we take all of these percentage life gain nodes. So what this means is that the more maximum life that you stack on your gear, so like you can see I have 71 maximum life here, that actually equals more regeneration. So your regeneration scales as you get more regeneration and as you get more life. So you don't have to stack percentage regeneration, which I think is a lot weaker. Let's see, I forget where the percentage regeneration nodes are. There's something down here. But instead, you regenerate percentage life, then every time you get a point of life, so 87% maximum life, that's actually more total regen and more sustain for your character, which is why eventually taking blood magic is an option for us. Anyway, thank you for watching this build guide. I hope this helps you out get through the campaign faster. And if you're thinking about maybe going for a melee build, later down the line, maybe you can start off with crossbow. You can kind of start off with this build, and then you can respec at the end game and get into your melee build with your warrior titan setup. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Peace.